think I'm spooky.
Be afraid. Be very afraid. What have you done to his eyes?
Good evening and welcome to Soft and Spooky. For today's video, I figure some of us are not ready to let go of Halloween and the spooky season, so I wanted to give some recommendations on horror movies that you can watch even outside of the spooky season. I did kind of want to make this into like a choose your own adventure style video, so I've actually broken up each of the 5 categories of my recommendations into different chapters for the video that you can find below. So if you're feeling a really certain vibe for watching some horror movies, you can just like skip to that chapter. I feel like an official YouTuber now, like look at me, I'm making chapters and stuff. I also just want to put in a disclaimer that if you disagree with these takes or you think that I have like crappy choices, please just be respectful in the comments. I'm a very sensitive person. I love horror and I love talking about horror, and I love the fact that the community is so diverse in our preferences. So, you know, if these don't appeal to you, feel free to leave some recommendations in the comments below, but just be nice to me. But yeah, without further ado, let's sink our teeth in. Okay, so first category up is going to be our thrilling horror movies. So these ones may not be as scary or may not have as much gore in them, but I do feel like they give you this tense feeling, and I found them to have some horror elements to it. The first recommendation in this category is going to be The Black Phone. I actually just recently watched this for the first time in early October, and I was just floored at how, I felt like this movie really flew under the radar for a lot of people, myself included. This was actually based off of the short story written by Joe Hill, who is the son of the esteemed horror writer Stephen King. Initially, when I saw the promotional material for this film, I was just like, turned off by it. I'm not a huge fan of masks that look like this. Like, I like the classic Leatherface, Michael Myers, Ghostface. That's fine, but I don't know. These ones just give me a little bit too much flashbacks of The Purge, which ironically actually starred another person that stars in this film, Ethan Hawke. This film takes place in 1978 after there's a series of child abductions, and I think that it really does create this eerie atmosphere because it takes place in 1978, which was actually just a year before those stranger danger PSAs started circulating, and so I just get this feeling of dread because it's like all of these parents didn't know how unsafe their children were. In the course of this film, a child gets abducted and is placed in the basement by our antagonist. And inside the basement, there is a single black phone. It's a landline that has been disconnected. But things start to get a little crazy when that phone starts to ring and it has people on the other side that are trying to help him escape. Hey, go up, you're snoring. Hey, wake up. Makeup. I genuinely don't want to say too much about this film because 1, I want you to check it out, and also do not watch the trailer. It gives away way too much. But 2, I'm also heavily considering doing a video on this, especially because I found out that they are greenlighting a sequel for this in 2025. So let me know in the comments below if you would like to see either a watch party or a review of this film, because I thought it was fantastic and such a satisfying ending. My second recommendation for thrilling horror movies is going to be The Invisible Man. This one strictly is a thriller, but I do feel with the little bit of gore that it does have, and also Elizabeth Moss, her portrayal of somebody that is an abuse survivor is absolutely horrific and chilling, and it really stuck with me. This film centers around our lead protagonist as she escapes an abusive and controlling relationship. But even after escaping it, she is so riddled with fear that he will find her because she's basically gone into hiding. And it doesn't give her any sense of relief until she finds out from her sister that her ex-boyfriend actually committed suicide. The weird thing is, though, she continues to feel stalked and followed even after his death. Again, I don't want to give away too much. I think that this film really, it just unfolds so beautifully and tragically. It just really stuck with me. I also think that the director, Leigh Whannell, who directed Saw, which is just a totally, I feel, different feel to this movie, he found a way to seamlessly adapt the 1897 novel into modern day, and it made sense. And I felt like this film was incredibly crafted, and I loved it. I think that this one probably will deserve a video on this channel as well. So let me know if you'd be interested in seeing it anytime soon. But yeah, this one is a good one. The second category of my horror recommendations is going to be scary. Scary. I do know that the term scary is definitely subjective. If you find that there are scarier films out there, full respect to you, because there probably are. I'm always looking for something new to keep me up at night instead of reliving that time that a guy was going in for a fist bump, but I thought that we were doing like a little handshake, and I just gently placed my hand over his fist. So feel free to recommend anything scarier in the comments. But these are some films that got under my skin a little bit. The first movie up in this category is going to be Sinister. So this was the one I mentioned in the first category with the director Scott Derrickson. He also directed Sinister, and this stars Ethan Hawke again. I feel like it should be like a game on this channel, like that 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, but it'll be 7 Degrees of Ethan Hawke, because this guy relates to horror in so many different ways. I still remember the first time that I watched this film. It was back when I was in college, freshman year, and I watched it with a group of my friends in their dorm room. And there was one particular scene with an image on a computer screen, and I won't tell too much, but all of us at that point were like, okay, yep, we're done. That's enough for tonight. And my one friend was so scared that she had to be walked back to her dorm, like her different building dorm. And I, at the time, didn't have a roommate in my dorm room. And so I just had to go back to my dorm room by myself with that image seared in my brain. And I slept with the lights on for like a week. Granted, I was kind of like a little weenie back then. I wasn't as into horror, and I definitely did not have the tolerance that I do now. But yeah, that scene did get to me a little bit. The premise of the film is that a true crime writer moves his family. The film's premise is around a true crime writer that moves his family into a home where a family was murdered. And in the process of going up in the attic, he discovers these home movies, or essentially snuff films, of all of these different families being murdered. And through watching these films, begins to understand that there's actually a tie to a supernatural force. I think this one appeals to me a lot because it's almost like a little bit of a mystery, like you're trying to figure it out along with the true crime writer, but it also has very unsettling and disturbing imagery with these snuff films of families being murdered in various ways. And it's filmed on this like kind of grainy 35 millimeter looking film, and a very minimal score, minimal sound effects. It really gets under your skin, and it's wonderful. Number 2 in this category of scary is going to be The Exorcist. Of course, I had to put this bad boy on here. I know that it is a classic, but it's a classic for a reason. Where else are you going to hear quotable lines like, your mother and fun for the whole... It's fun for the whole family. I don't know if it's just me, but I also sometimes I kind of veer away from these classic horror movies because I don't find them that scary. I figure that, it is a generation that had a lot less disturbing stuff that they could see on a daily basis. And so they got a little bit more scared of things that I find to be kind of tame. And so, what the hell was that? So I have a layer of skepticism, but this one still holds up. The premise of this film is about a young girl named Reagan who plays with a Ouija board and thinks that she's communicating with a ghost named Captain Howdy. In reality, she's actually communicating with a demon who is then invited into their home as well as into Reagan. And the whole story centers around an exorcist being brought in to get this demon out of Reagan. And it's just a completely harrowing story, not only about the girl herself, but also this priest that is questioning his faith. This film set the tone for so many religious-based horror films, and I think that there really is no denying the eerie feeling that it gives you. It's also interesting how this has had the ability to impact so many different generations, because I remember my mom, before I even saw The Exorcist, she told me about when she had seen it. She went to the theaters with her friend, and it was the most quiet and chilling walk home from it because her and her friend had to pass by this like cemetery and they were scared poopless. And I think that it's that, along with like the subliminal imagery and the score. I think that this film really stands up against time. I also, every time I watch it, the subliminals just get like seared into my brain every time I'm trying to go to sleep.
That's what she said. And you know what? What was that? Okay, James.
It just goes to show that this film, it still has teeth to it. All right, so number 3, our category is disturbing horror films. Debatably, this one is actually even more subjective in the horror community because some people's definition of disturbing is a Serbian film or Cannibal Holocaust, and I am not built for those. I look for horror movies that definitely have some disturbing or unsettling imagery or events, but I still overall want to find it an enjoyable experience, whereas sometimes when it's strictly disturbing, it just leaves me feeling weird for like weeks. So with that being said, my number 1 recommendation for disturbing movies is going to be Barbarian. This one I went in completely blind, like didn't even watch the trailer. I didn't know what it was about, but I knew that Alexander Skarsgård was in it and I was going to watch it. And honestly, I am so glad that I knew nothing about it and I didn't look into it at all because I just was so surprised. I mean, gosh, that feels like an understatement to say surprised. It just is not what you're expecting this film to be at all. Essentially, even though I'm going to be as vague as possible, it centers around this house that is in Detroit, and our main character, Tess, she rents an Airbnb for a job interview, and she comes to find out that the Airbnb was double booked, and there's another guy, Alexander Skarsgård, that is also booked for that weekend. After that, the film just completely goes off the rails with just the disturbing things that she ends up finding in the basement. And we do also get a character or an actor that I was so excited to see. He's kind of like a horror staple at this point. And I was so stoked to find out that he was in this movie. I'll give you a hint. His initials are JL. So I loved this movie. It was so weird. It was oddly funny in some aspects too, and I thought that it was really weird and unsettling and a great time. Please go watch this movie. I just want to talk about it with more people. Number 2 in disturbing is going to be Dr. Sleep. Good Lord, the performances, the cinematography, the directing by Mike Flanagan, it was perfect. Many people know I am a huge Mike Flanagan fangirl. He's my favorite director. And I feel like anytime I'm given some content from him, I devour it like a wild dog. This film is no different because it's actually even an adaptation of my favorite horror writer, Stephen King. It is the continuation of The Shining, and we're seeing Danny Torrance, the young boy from The Shining, all grown up. Somehow, Dr. Sleep finds that perfect balance of paying homage to Kubrick's adaptation of The Shining, while also giving the deserving appreciation and respect to Stephen King's original work and the continuation, Dr. Sleep. Do be warned, this film is surprisingly upsetting and disturbing in a very particular scene in a baseball field. And so it may not be for everybody, but I do feel like it is just so worth it. If anything, for the child actors' performances, this is the best child acting I've ever seen. I also thought that the earlier category where I talked about the black phone, I thought the child acting was really good in that too. But this just makes me want to cry. I was so impressed with these child actors. The film's premise centers around the shining ability in people, where it kind of stands in for telepathic abilities. We see Danny Torrance from the first film all grown up now as he is boxing up the ghosts of his past, both figuratively and literally. But he is brought back into the fray when a young girl who also has the shining capability, she becomes witness to this group of people that are actually hunting down people with the shining and stealing their essence and murdering them. This film also has one of the best female villains I've ever seen, and it's just amazing to see a character do such horrible, horrifying things and hide behind such a beautiful visage. Face. She has a pretty face. She's pretty. I was surprised at how much gut-wrenching emotion this film drew from me, and I cannot recommend it enough. Okay, yeah, let's lighten things up. And number 4, we are going to be doing lighthearted or comedy horrors. This category mostly speaks for itself. It's basically horror movies that just don't really take themselves too seriously. I find a lot of joy watching and rewatching these movies, and they almost serve as a comfort movie if you like it a little off-putting, or maybe I'm just desensitized. Number 1 in this category is Ready or Not. Ready or Not is it's big fun. I think about this movie a lot. Our lead protagonist, Grace, just married into this wealthy family that acquired their wealth through a board game empire. I mean, they manufacture all of these board games. As a tradition, on the wedding night, each person that is marrying into the family must draw a card and they play a game from their collection. Grace ends up pulling a hide-and-seek card, and we soon find out that this is basically like the old maid. This is not a card you want to get. The family takes this game very seriously, and it's a very morbid game of hide-and-seek. And I just think that this film delivers on the humor, gave me some chuckles. It also has very good gore, like makes you squeamish a little bit. And I think that it's such a refreshing concept that I found really fun and engaging. It also is just like a top quality movie to watch with friends. I think it gets everybody having a good time. So I definitely recommend this one. Number 2, this one's actually a tie, and I have so many horror movies that are lighthearted and funny, like this one, this category I have a lot to recommend, but I would recommend either Shaun of the Dead or Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Since I did already do a watch party on Killer Clowns from Outer Space, which I will link up above here and at the end of the video if you wanted to check that out, I will primarily be talking about Shaun of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead is just so effortlessly witty and brilliant. They found ways to tie in these hints and these recurring jokes in with the end of the film, and it's such a rewarding watch every time. It centers around our lead character, Sean, and his group of friends as they encounter a zombie outbreak. In the process of defeating these zombies, Sean also learns how to rise to the occasion and take accountability for his previously dull life. I think what makes this one so great is that you can watch it so many times. I mean, you can rewatch this and it's just an easy watch, but also it's even more rewarding because you notice so many things that are tying in later on a rewatch, and it's so much fun. I love this movie. Oh my gosh, we're blazing through these. All right, number 5, our last category is unique horror movies. These are the horror movies that I would recommend if you're just looking for something really different and refreshing and weird, and yeah, these are the ones you want to check out. Number 1 is The Substance. I know that this is a new one and I won't perseverate on it too much because I did actually just do a review on it. So if you wanted to know my more in-depth thoughts without any spoilers, I would definitely recommend checking out that video. But I just found this film to be outrageous and over the top and gross body horror, but it also invited me to reflect on myself. And I found it to be a really cool horror movie. The film centers around a fitness icon that has slowly kind of aged out of Hollywood, and she is offered this substance that would allow her to create a copy of herself that is a better, younger version. The only catch is that every 7 days they have to switch off. So one will be dormant and then the other will be active and then they switch. Things do go horribly awry when the original, played by Demi Moore, is kept under or kept dormant for way too long, and you see these horrible repercussions on her body. I think that this film was just something very different that I needed to see in 2024, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Number 2 of my unique horror film recommendations, and the very last recommendation of this video, it is Late Night with the Devil. I think this one immediately just captivated me with the stylistic choices that they made. I love this late night 70s talk show feel it has, and the way that they did the set design as well as the chromatic aberration on the camera with the graininess, where it has that kind of rainbow distortion around the objects. It just really sold it visually for me. Conceptually, I also found this to be very refreshing because I had never seen a premise like this, where a late night talk show host is trying to revive his dying show by pushing the boundaries and showing a live, on-air exorcism. The lead actor, David Dastmalchian, I found him to perfectly nail this performance because he got the mannerisms and he got the speech patterns of a 70s talk show host. Like he did the damn thing, and I was so impressed with his performance. I think the beginning third and a half of this film I really enjoyed, and I found it to be very intriguing and exciting. I do think that it kind of loses its mojo in the end, where it just felt very rushed. I felt like some concepts, I was like, what? Where did this come from? And I wish that it would have been a little bit better developed. I also was not a huge fan of the demon face when it was shown. I found it to be a little corny, little cornball goofer. But I still think that it's worth the time, especially because this film I think was only an hour and a half, and it keeps the pacing going pretty well, and I think that it's a fun movie to watch with some friends. And I think visually it's just very intriguing to look at. So you don't feel like you're investing too much time and you're not losing too much time. So I think that if you wanted to check it out, it's definitely a unique film to see. And that just about does it for my horror movie recommendations. Do you have any of your own that you would put in some of these categories? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, definitely leave it a thumbs up so I know you like this type of content and that I should make more. Also, I just wanted to say thank you so much for the support lately. It makes me so happy to know that my content is enjoyable for people and I'm making stuff that you want to see. So really, thank you. And with that, I will see you all in the next video. Don't forget to stay soft and spooky. Bye.